So this is for my summative assessment, last one. This is for my track one, and the style that I've chose is drum and bass, and this is an original. So I haven't rearranged the song or nothing. This is an original track. So the melody, the scale I used is a D major, but I've used it as a descending scale instead of like an ascending or any other scales that just any random scale. I've made sure it's descending, as I found the key of the samples that I used in the song and just followed with them and just used like the three main notes that I heard. So yeah, and the most common note that I used was probably an F sharp, I think it was. So yeah, F sharp it was, which is the most like well-known note in my song, and pretty much it's centered all about the samples that I've used. I've made sure that everything's in key, so all the MIDI that I've added myself is the same key as the sample, otherwise it wouldn't sound very good. The BPM or time signature, not the BPM, the time signature is a 4/4, which is pretty much common in every song pretty much ever made, to be fair. So for the rhythm, for my drums, I've layered my drums, so I've had the sample of like a breakbeat, which is common in drum and bass tracks, and I've laid it with my own MIDI drums that were on top, which kind of like a hip-hop kind of drum, and I've just laid them so it sounds more full and it's just like better to listen to. The drums that I added myself included a hi-hat on every other beat, a kick drum on the first two hi-hats and then the last two hi-hats, which gives it the hip-hop kind of feel on top of the drum and bass. And there's a clap after every other kick drum, and of course there's the breakbeat that's on top of it. So yeah, it sounds pretty good when I've put it both together, because the drums like don't feel just like they feel full, like you can just proper like bop to the song. For the harmony, I didn't really play any type of chords. The chords that were played through the samples, and obviously this kind of genre is heavily sampled pretty much, especially the kind of subgenre that I've done, which is called breakcore as well. So it's drum and bass, but like it's not like a in the club rave song. It's more of a like nice melody and like nice calm like drum and bass drums in the background. So I'd say I played more of lead roles, and I would have played chords, but I couldn't identify the ones in the sample, so that's on my behalf. I used a kind of like bass line, like an 808 sub bass line over the song for most of it, also using the D major scale, which was the F sharp. The notes that I used for it, sorry, was a F sharp, an E and a C sharp. And it's a 3-2-7 chord, well, not chord progression, 3-2-7 progression. For the texture or the instruments that I've used a sub bass of an 808, which is pretty common in that type of music. I've added my own synths, which I've made myself. I added the drum pattern, obviously, and then I also added all the samples up and put them on. The synths that I added that were later on in the song, I used as like just one layer over the top of everything else, like over the samples and like the drums, the bass, just so like added something more than just samples into the song. Otherwise it just wouldn't be my song really, would it? I got the samples off Splice, as I purchased it sometime this month, well this month, and due to there being so much like drums in the song, like how I laid my drums, it makes the song sound thick, like there's loads of stuff going on. And I'd probably say the lead instrument to my song is probably the breakbeat, because you can't really have drum and bass without a breakbeat, otherwise it's not a drum and bass, is it? For structure and form, I wouldn't really say my song has structure and form, as it didn't really have any vocals in it, and I just kind of like kept adding things into the song randomly and didn't really structure it very well. So I'd say that's one of my flaws of the song. But in this kind of genre, it's quite repetitive in the things, so I've kind of made it repetitive with everything that I've used. For the tempo, I've used 85 BPM, which is very slow for these type of songs. But when I flex tooled the sample of the breakbeat in, it just sounded so much more smoother than when it was like at 150 BPM. For my production techniques, I added quite a lot of effects over my instruments, while obviously including making my own synth, which I did all myself just by learning as I've been practicing production for a while, as it's something I want to get in. And I've used the Flex Tool Polyphonic to get all my samples in time with the actual track BPM, which was difficult but not difficult, I just made sure that I used the Flex Tool as well and the markers to stretch certain bits so it's right on the beat. I also used some velocity on the MIDI drums on my hi-hats to add a kind of like effect, so there's like, it goes like a high, like a very high pitched hi-hat, and then it goes quite a bit low, high, low, low. Just so it changes it up a bit, adds a bit more grooves to drums. And the song that I took inspiration from, or link it to, is Anyone Can Find Love by Hikomori. It's where I got my inspiration from. It's a subgenre of D&B called breakcore, as I've mentioned already, which is where they take samples from other songs, which is what I've done, and put breakbeats over the top of them, and like put the breakbeats into a sampler and play it on the keyboard. So like they're either like changing pitch, changing speed, you know, maybe going a bit deeper, a bit louder, just in general, or the pitch shifts on them. It's just pretty much adding your own thing instead of just keeping the simple breakbeat. You add like a repetitive kind of bit to the breakbeat and then change it back to the normal. You just chop the breakbeat into different pieces and keep using them as different ones. But also I chose this song because in the song there's a piano that's repetitively playing, and in my song I also have a piano sample. It's kind of like a jazzy kind of hip-hop piano, which is also in the song that I've chose. So yeah, that is for my track 1 of drum and bass.